Welcome back to another episode of Kinda Different, a dental podcast where we talk about innovation in the industry. We talk about how we can make dental care more human, and we connect with some of the best people that are out there in the industry doing really cool things, who are really cool humans. It's super fun. I'm Dr. Matt Allen, CEO and co-founder of DifferentKind, and your host for Kinda Different. And I'm thrilled to have with me today Dr. Aditi Agarwal, did I say that right? Good enough. Okay, close
Good
enough.
enough.
I always try. Sometimes you can correct me if I'm wrong, please. Um, but yeah, Aditi is the co-founder at Practice by Numbers. You probably know Practice by Numbers, one of the best data analytics platforms out there. So obviously, we kind of exist in similar worlds, Aditi, where we're
Yeah.
doing, we're thinking about data and filling data gaps in dentistry and whatever. So I'm really thrilled for this conversation. Thank you for taking the time today to join me and to join us and to
Thank,
inform our listeners and all of those things. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and then we'll dive into some questions.
well, thank you. Thanks, Matt, for having me and, on this wonderful platform. You guys are so amazing in what you're doing. And, as we talked about, data is king these days. And, both of us are looking at dentistry through a different lens and trying to fill a lot of the gaps that we see. And, so kudos to you for that, because it is hard sometimes to change your focus and look at things from the big picture when you are so used to seeing things in the millimeters.
Totally. But yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you have a fascinating history, and even how you came to kind of found Practice by Numbers. I would love to have you share a little bit of that.
Well, thanks. I'm a general dentist, been one practicing for 21 years, and I am still practicing. I have two startup practices. I'm here in Seattle, Washington. And my first startup I started in 2010 when, the market was depressed. That was a very smart thing to do. So, when I started out my practice, I was like, oh, I'm a dentist. I got this. I can drill teeth. And then I was like, wait, where are the patients? And I realized I needed to know about marketing. And then once we get those patients, somehow by magic through the door, how do I keep them? And so I realized I needed some sort of tracking to figure out what was happening with these patients. And it was a very slow and painful process. I went through first. I used EagleSoft, so I went through all the reporting in EagleSoft, which I'm sure you know how fun it is to use.
Really?
And after that, I was like, okay, this was, even with the doctorate, I would have problems with figuring out EagleSoft reports. And then we moved on to, I said, okay, my husband, who's an engineer, saw all this struggle that I was going through. And he's like, okay, I can create a spreadsheet for you, honey. My Valentine's Day present was a spreadsheet. It was
So
awesome.
romantic, so romantic.
And I know all of you dentists out there understand what I'm saying. And when I saw that spreadsheet, I was like, what the heck? Is this easier? I don't know. I don't think so. And so we were, having a discussion, and I told my husband, I said, there's got to be an easier way for me to visualize this. I'm a visual person. Most dentists are. We're so used to using our hands and our eyes that we have difficulty with just all these, papers with numbers on them. And so he created a dashboard. And when I saw that, I was like, it's like when you put on loops for the first time and you can see every little thing that you thought you were seeing in a tooth. And it was like that for me. It was that moment where I was like, holy crap, this is what's going on in my practice. And so that's how really Practice by Numbers came to be. It was just, necessity is the mother of invention, and it was needed. We couldn't really find anything out there that was doing that at that time. So we decided, okay, we're going to start a company and see where this takes us. We started as an analytics company, as you said, back in 2015. But then we started realizing that what's the point of analyzing without getting a full picture? And so that's how we started then incorporating, the patient communications part, the forms, the um, online payments, the online booking, insurance verification. So now we're truly gunning to be that all-in-one platform that a dentist and their team can use on an everyday basis.
I love it. I love it. So you have all of this fantastic technology out there, and if you've ever seen, the Practice by Numbers platform, you know how in depth it is. It's very, very in depth. Um, what are you specifically hoping that the impact of your innovation will be? So this came from a very personal place for you. This
Yeah.
came from a place of need. This came from a place of I need a solution for this,
Yes.
right? But obviously, it's much bigger than that now. And what are you hoping that the impact of how you're innovating will kind of change dentistry?
So, the thing is that, to be honest, we are the only dentist owned and operated technology platform out there today. And what this means is that, we have a true vision for dentistry and dentists, and that transcends it from being just a tool one can use in dentistry, but to be a tool one can utilize to make the dentist and their team's lives better. So that's what I want to change. It's not just another tool, you know, and it's a comprehensive solution, and it's stable and it's reliable. And we want to make sure that the dentists and their teams spend less time on administrative tasks and more time with their patients.
Mm,
So automation is the key,
yeah.
and that's where we are. We're going with this.
I love it. It's I think it's so interesting because it's so easy to get there's so much right there. There's so much power in what you've built, and ultimately, the goal of that power is to facilitate ease, right? It's an interesting kind of conundrum, right? The goal is not to create rabbit holes, and I mean, if you want to, obviously you can go deep, 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 right, and spend lots of but I think your goal to hear the outcomes there of like, hey, we want to make you able to go see the patients that you want to see, have the information you need when you need it, right, and not be either A, walking into those things unaware,
Yeah.
or B, struggling, really struggling, like I'm sure you did when you were building this, or in the early days, right, in a spreadsheet to get that information. So really cool to hear your kind of vision for what the future of dental software
Right.
can be.
No, the power is in the provider, and I want to. I firmly believe in that. Right. And I really, my aim of my game is to give the provider back their power. And once you're empowered in your you know day to day, you're able to have better patient outcomes, because you now have something that is ready and moving and working, that you can actually focus and listen to what that patient is saying
Yeah,
to you,
yeah.
you know and that is, to me, that's the key, right? You got to be able to listen to that patient. For that, you need all your energy focused on that patient, not at what's going on with XYZ up front.
Totally. Yeah, you want all the kind of exterior world to to fall away when you're talking with a patient, right? So you can be totally there, you can be totally present. But yeah, if you're always thinking about all the many things that you have to go do, or whatever, right, it makes it
Right.
really hard to do that. So I love that outcome. I think it's a really yeah, it's just a great vision for what dentistry can be.
Yes.
When you think about, so you've been involved in change for a long time, and you've been pushing rocks up hills and sometimes pushing them probably down hills, and
Yeah.
just pushing a lot of rocks, right?
Yeah.
Really, really fighting to make change within the industry. If you could wake up tomorrow and just not have to push rocks anymore, just have a magic wand and be like, hey, this is what I would love to see. Here's the change, and you've already talked about a few, but if there was just one thing where you're like, hey, to me, this is the biggest pain point that we see, and here's how I like want to, see that difference in dentistry, and I don't have to push rocks anymore, what would that change be?
The main thing I think is, and I just mentioned it, we practitioners today, they're operating very differently
Mm-hmm.
than they did even just 20 years ago, right? The consumer of today is very savvy, right? They are very educated using the internet, and and it's our job to help them make right decisions, right? And I would, again, my whole thing is don't to not think about technology as a burden, but to use it as a tool and help them help dentists make right decisions so they can guide their patients to make right decisions because they already know what's going to happen. They already know how that root canal is going to go down,
Right, right.
right?
That's the
It's for
United Dentistry.
us to kind of break it down and show it to them that whether it's going to be, what the outcome's going to be and how they only really care about the pain.
Yeah.
So, and it's just, when you don't have that mental energy to be a dentist because you're doing so many other things, that's where I feel like technology can help. It means uh, just being more receptive and flexible but to change both in and out of the operatory, you know. So what I would like to really shift, honestly, is the mindset.
Mm,
I know this is really big. It's not a small
I love it. That's what the
wand.
magic wand is for, right? I love it. If you're not thinking about a big thing, then don't use your magic wand, right?
So that's really my thing. That's what needs to change.
I love
Honestly,
it. I love it. And what a gift for future, generations of dentists, right? Who can come into dental school and, potentially have a different mindset. I think it's harder for, probably existing dentists to change than it will be for new dentists to simply come into a world where a lot of these technologies exist, right? And what a gift, for them. Not that they won't have other things to worry about and think about, and the world's always changing. But if we can solve some of the problems that have existed for a while,
yeah,
what a
yeah,
gift to be able to free up that the mindset of, hey, this is what my real job as a dentist is, which I think, we continue to talk about on this podcast in lots of different ways. It's ultimately that like trust creation, relationship building, all
yeah,
of those pieces with the dentist so that that person can walk out of there and feel good about their oral health, feel
yeah.
capable of doing the things they need to do with their teeth, all of those things. And then obviously the dental practice and the dentist and everyone within the practice, wins, right? Like everyone wins in that situation.
Absolutely. And with the new innovations coming in just clinical dentistry, Matt, with sleep and sleep apnea therapy, and it's starting to become more mainstream, dentists need to be educated in that. So it's just that, our cup is full, our plate is full, and it's no longer a plate. It's what do you call it? It's a platter now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do you make space for all of that? If you have to do so many other things, eventually, oral cancer is becoming a huge thing, and a lot of new things coming out for early detection of oral cancer. You need to have time to educate your patients on that. Well, how are you going to do that when you're thinking about, your missed call rate or your
all the business things that dentists have to focus on 100%. Yeah, I totally agree.
exactly, exactly.
Totally,
So,
totally agree. Well, Aditi, you're a fascinating person. You're really dynamic, and just is really great in lots of ways. So I want to learn a little bit more about you and kind of share a little bit of that with share some of your dynamism with our listeners. Tell us about some of the things that shape your daily life values, that shape your daily life and or your company, because obviously you're building, this company, you have built this company. Curious to hear like what makes you tick and how maybe you can give us some examples of, okay, here's our value, but here's like how we live that out on a day-to-day basis.
right. Cool. So, at PBN, and I'm going to talk about practice by numbers, we both lead and follow, both with honesty, integrity. And I have this, at least my husband and I both have this huge appetite to do the right thing
Mm,
in dentistry. You know, it's about time.
yeah.
And this is created by a dentist, so created by me, we who has actually lived through every single struggle that a dentist faces in their career, right out of dental school, right from being out of dental school to being an associate to doing a startup. I have literally done them all, into acquiring a practice, the full thing. I have been in every shoe myself,
Yep.
and the shoe doesn't fit always.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to find a way to make it fit. And so I truly just want to make a dentist's lives better.
Yeah.
And so in our vision, it's basically, life is too short to make false promises.
Mm,
And so we just want to make dentist lives better so that they can just be, you know, a part of their community
mm,
and do the right thing for their communities. whether it's as a dentist or as a parent or as a sibling or even as a friend,
Yeah.
right? We have to be able to enable that. And so one of our core values is treating our customers and our team members like family.
Mm.
And I, one way I've always practiced dentistry is in my mind, do what you would to others, what you would do for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've always practiced dentistry in 21 years. It's been a, relatively smooth ride. Thank God for that.
Yep.
But, and those principles are very solid with us, and
Yep.
we carry that with our company now as well. We started with two people, my husband, myself, and we have a third person, a third partner,
Mm-hmm.
who would. I had an unused op in my practice, and the three of us, would work together in my op for the longest time when we were building our analytics
Yep.
platform. And now we have over 70 employees just for practice by numbers.
Wow.
And we still lead with the same thing that we started when we were the three of us sitting in my uh, operatory with the
Yeah.
drill going on one side and the coding going on the other side.
I love it. I love it. What I mean, so beautiful and so much that, and you talk about a relatively smooth journey, and I'm sure for you're a very positive person. Like hey, like obviously you're tackling lots of big challenges, and I'm sure for a lot of people they would look at your journey and be like, wow, like you know that seems rough, and you're like, no, we're just doing it. Like we're moving ahead. So I love the optimism and just your ability to tackle those challenges head on. What a great gift for
No,
both you, your community, your patients, et cetera, for the dental profession in general. So I love that. Let's talk quickly about making dental care more human. In terms of doing the right thing, and in terms of, obviously we've already had, a little bit of this conversation, but how specifically do you think you're making, obviously the name of our company is Different Kind, the name of the podcast is kind of different. So I always like to think about that, right? Both in terms of how is it different, but also how is it kind? So how would you classify what you're doing as making dentistry different, and how would you classify as what you're doing as making dentistry kind? Give us some examples.
I think what we're doing is empowering our teams, the teams and the provider, to be able to run their business, because there's two parts of being a dental provider, right? You were wearing the dentist hat, and then you're also wearing a business hat. And that business hat is made of lead sometimes. It's very heavy. And I have noticed that a lot of the people start to get crushed
Mm.
because of that hat.
Yep.
And so I was there too. And that's why when we built this company, it was like, okay, how can we change this, unburden the dentist just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit, so that they can change their focus. And the main thing is really empowering, and this is what I did in my own practices, right? Was
Yep.
use my data that was in my own practice to empower my team.
Yeah.
I would, and it's amazing what empowerment does,
Yeah.
because now they feel like they're part of the big picture.
Mm.
They have tasks assigned to them. So now in this current landscape of, difficulty in finding people to work for you, it is an amazing tool to have, where people say, okay, they have incentive to grow,
Yeah.
because now their growth can be attached to a metric. You know, it's not like, okay, the office does a big production goal of this much, collection goal of this much, but everybody's invested in it, in playing that role.
Yeah.
From the front desk to the assistants to the hygienists to any other auxiliary people you have working for you, it really becomes centered as a team.
Yeah.
You talk about teamwork, that's teamwork. And I know, because I've done it. It takes time. It's not it's not a one day turnaround thing, but once you have it, I can be sitting here having a conversation with Matt while my offices are still running.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to bring.
I love that. I love that. I mean, there's so much opportunity for growth. I mean, I think about it from the perspective of dental hygienists, man. Like they can do so much more with their licenses, and we're starting to see some of the states, recognize that and whatever. But that's just a license, right? Like
Yeah.
there's people without licenses in our offices that have way more capacity than I think we often assign to them, and
Right.
so being able to have some of those things taken off your plate because of, hey, we now just have some of this automated and some of it's showing up, and they can handle it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What a great gift for every single person who comes through your office and through
Yeah,
your company.
no, people want responsibility. That's the best thing. They want responsibility. They want to be proud of what they achieve, right?
Mm,
Everybody wants to be proud of their achievements. For us, it's easy. We do 6 to 10, and we are like, oh wow, there's instant gratification when the case goes well. Of course, when it doesn't, it doesn't. But
yeah,
but
yeah.
when it goes well, then you're like, I did this. But for my assistant and for my front desk, where is their I did this moment, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to create that for them. And I realized that by having metrics, this helps create opportunities. So that they have something to say, I did this. And that's a huge gift.
That's beautiful. I did this. How do we create more I did this moments? That's what I'm saying. That's one of the things I'm taking from this conversation with you. I love it. Um, Last question for you. I always love this one. You're obviously still practicing. You see patients. You're there. You know this. What's one small, easily implementable thing you think should happen to improve patient experience, build trust? All of those pieces. What's one thing that you're like, hey, this should happen every single time a patient walks into an office anywhere in this country or in the world?
Yeah, the most important thing, and I think that's what I feel has changed my practice, is actually listening to the patient and training your team to actually listen to the patient. When that phone call comes in, listen to what they're saying, right? What do they want? What do they need? You want to guide the patient based on what their needs and wants are. But if you don't listen, you just hear it, but don't understand what they're asking, then you can't guide them correctly.
Yeah.
And I think, as dentists, sometimes we understand that, right? Or we try to take a deeper dive and understand these situations,
Mm-hmm.
but our teams don't really always do that.
Yeah.
And I think if we help them understand, help the teams understand that how important it is to actually, that first interaction,
Mm.
to actually listen to what that patient is wanting, because everybody in this world wants to feel special.
Yeah.
And if you can make them feel special from that first interaction, that I hear you, Mr. Jones, that I understand what your actual problem is, and they can find a way to find a solution for you, they are um, thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, these days you try to get into a doctor, a regular MD, the waiting times are 3, 4, 5 months, specialties even longer. So they feel like they're just cattle pushed through in a lot of in these
Mm-hmm.
situations.
Totally.
Whereas there's allied health sciences like us, they can actually truly feel well cared for. And I think that's the most important thing, is eventually your patient needs to feel well cared for, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, and I love what you're saying in terms of empowerment and team-based care and listening, because for most patients, the amount of time that they're going to spend with the dentist is very small,
Yeah.
right? And so what they're going to remember from their dental journey is not always, hey, this dentist who probably hasn't actually received training in listening. So hopefully they've, viewed that as a part of their job and cared about it like you're talking about. But even if they do and they don't empower their team to do those other pieces, right, then you still walk away as a patient feeling like, I just generally was not heard here. I was generally not listened to. And to your point earlier, a dentist has a million things going on in their brain, right, of all these different pieces, running the practice, whatever.
Yeah.
But so does the front desk, right? Like they're like, this person's waiting on hold, this is going on here, all these issues, right? And so for them to be able to truly say, you know what, a priority for me is listening to this person, because that is that is how we run our practice. That is what everyone here does, right? It becomes so much easier to focus on that patient if that's the culture, if that's the norm, if that's what's expected. And obviously, that's going to be meaningful and life-giving for everyone. So I love pulling that thread through of everything you've said. What a beautiful way
Oh,
to
thank
finish
you.
us up here. And certainly, I think a recurring theme. I think if anyone has been listening to this podcast for a while, that the idea that, it's still early in the year, right? If you get better at anything this year and it's listening, like, you're winning. You're going to be winning in 2024 if you're a better listener at the end of the year than you are at the beginning of the year. So
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Listening builds trust, and trust builds, your reputation, and reputation is everything. It will
there you
bring
go.
you patience more than you ever wanted. And it's clinical skills matter, but honestly, more than that, it is your heart and your ears and your other senses
Yep.
that matter more to that patient, because they need to feel valued, and that's how they feel valued. I mean, there's plenty of dentists, as down the street. How do you make yourself different? And I think sometimes being different in your core, in your team, and making that patient feel well cared for, they're not going to leave, even if you want to boot them out. And then you can drop the insurance and still keep them as patients.
There you go, right? Yeah, lots of downstream ramifications of that. There's one of my favorite studies from all of dental literature. It came out in 2012 in Australia, asking patients what they want. Beautiful study. I've mentioned, I think, on the podcast before. But it's really cool because you go to like the second half of the study and they're just like quotes from patients. And one of the quotes is essentially, I've left dentists before, I've dropped dentists before. How they communicated with me and how, essentially like what you're saying, the heart, their ears, all of that was more important than their skill set. And you're like, man, like, and for them, it was just kind of like dentist, but it's like, how are they making that determination, right? Because everyone theoretically they should, right, have a license. They have the qualification.
Yeah.
So what is it that's really going to differentiate? So listening to it from the patient perspective, I think, was such an eye opener. Great study for anyone out there listening and wanting to go dive into that. So Aditi, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time to
you.
join us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, Practice by Numbers, where do they go? Help us understand, how to get in touch with you from here.
Yep. So our website, if you want to learn and see what the magic Practice by Numbers can do, is www.practicenumbers.com. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm always available. It's my email is Aditi, that's ADITI, .Agarwal, AGARWAL, @practicenumbers.com. So looking forward to hearing from you guys. Shoot me any questions you have. I've been doing this a long time.
Awesome. I love it. And you're all at shows as well and whatnot too. So I'm guessing they could probably find you there. And again,
Yes.
just what a genuine, thoughtful, kind human you are. And if you get a chance to meet Aditi at a show, I hope you get a chance to say hello to her, give her a high five, whatever it might be. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Kind of Different. We're so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really appreciate the conversation today and look forward to continuing it in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Same here. Really enjoyed the conversation today.